Hello and welcome to episode 2 of The Film Angle. I'm Alex.
And I'm Kris.
And today we're going to be talking about the Oscars. But first of all, let's just throw out there, thank you for listening to our first ever episode last
Yeah,
week.
thank you very much.
I think it's gone down pretty well. And it can only get better, I think. Right, Kris?
Yeah, absolutely. I did have a message from my sister last night saying that I sounded like a weird American. So that's something.
Yeah, I think it's going to take us a second to get into this, but I think your dulcet Irish tones will bring everybody back. I don't think you sound like an American at
Well,
all.
I think you sounded very good too, even though that you were sick last week. I don't think you mentioned that on air, but you were coughing like a dog, and I had to edit that out.
Yeah, it was an interesting first attempt at podcasting when you're all blocked up and even more nasally than usual. But there we go. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening, and we hope you're here this week as well. And tell your friends, subscribe, share. We're on Spotify. You can rate on Spotify now. You can give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We understand if it might take a few episodes to come to that conclusion. But please bear with us, and I hope you enjoyed the journey. So, Kris, we are talking about the Oscars. First question: are the Oscars dumb?
Well, I've always came to the Oscars with a degree of separation. You got to kind of go into thinking, yes, it's kind of silly. I mean, most of the movies that we really appreciate, most of the movies that make it into my top 10 every year are generally not represented in the Oscars. There is a degree of traditionalism where we pay tribute to a certain type of movie that audiences like and critics like, and it has to appeal. It's a show at the end of the day, and people got to tune in, and that they're talking about the most critically acclaimed Cannes winner or Venice Film Award winner, then not many people are going to tune in. So you got to come into it with a degree of skepticism, but I enjoy it nonetheless.
Well, there's been a little bit of talk over the last couple of weeks about I don't know if you've seen it actually, Kris. Spider-Man: No Way Home not having an Oscar nomination, despite what many people are claiming is that it saved cinema in this pandemic. What are your
Wow,
thoughts on that?
those are big words. Um, Again, I can't chime in on that, Alex. To be fair, I haven't caught up with Spider-Man: No Way Home yet. Um, yeah, it seems like it's taken the world over by storm. I mean, what I've seen previously from Marvel is usually very good, but I'd be skeptical to wonder whether it would hold up to being in a Best Picture category, let alone winning it.
Yeah, I mean, Kris, you know me. Most of our listeners are probably family and friends, so they all know me. But if you're not a family or friend, I am the biggest Spider-Man fan.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
Huge Spider-Man fan. So and like we mentioned last week, I've got a film degree, so my opinion trumps yours, Kris. It shouldn't be nominated. I'm just sorry, Spider-Man. I love you. You're a good film, isn't it? It wasn't a bad film at all, but. Nah, you're not Oscar worthy. But then I would also argue that some of the films on this list are also not Oscar worthy. But it's been a weird couple of years for cinema and which films are kind of coming out. I'm really happy some of them are on the list here.
Yeah, I mean,
Which
I just want to say that where in previous years I found it way easier to have a handle on where I actually think the Academy voters will lean towards. I think this year is really, really tough. It's very competitive to say the least. And what makes it even harder is that there's a real shift in tastes. We're finding there's a lot more showing up in the award ceremony for the nominees. There's a lot more contemporary and traditional picks being mixed together. So because you have such a wider demographic of Academy voters now, it's hard to tell whether we'll get a traditional winner this year or more of a new wave cinema and lean towards more younger audiences. It's hard to tell. I don't think I'm going to be really good at predicting who's going to win this year.
yeah, it's an interesting one, and I think we'll obviously get to who we think's going to win and who we'd like to win later in the show.
Ooh.
Shall we just jump straight into it?
So how about we kick it off with the actor in a leading role category? We had Will Smith for King Richard. We had Denzel Washington for The Tragedy of Macbeth. Benedict Cumberbatch for The Power of the Dog. Andrew Garfield, obviously, for Tick, Tick, Boom. And lastly, Javier Bardem for Being the Ricardos.
Yeah, a pretty solid lineup. I've seen all of the films apart from King Richard. What about you?
Okay, I've seen all of the movies apart from being the Ricardos, and I don't even know if I'm going to catch up with it. Just it's not something that's on the top of my list at the minute.
Well, that's fair enough. I think Javier Bardem is good in it. Uh, he's always a serviceable actor, and maybe that's where we'll leave it. I don't think he's going to win, but he was fine.
How about we start off with Will Smith for King Richard? I don't know if you managed to catch up with it, Alex, but it's a pretty larger than life role for a larger than life actor for playing a larger than life personality. So it seems to tick all the boxes for Will Smith and what would be normally your Oscar-winning performance. But there's a part of me that is genuinely really impressed by Smith's performance in this. I specifically referred to how he is no stranger to biopics. I remember back in the early 2000s when he played the role of Ali. He was really good, really respectful of the personality, and really wanted to play tribute to him, also playing with a degree of actually restraint. I can't say that for the Richard Williams character though. He does go for it, but it's a really strong performance and probably kinder to the real man than probably is necessary. I think the movie is very very kind to the personality, but there's no doubting that Will Smith is a great performer and it's a good role for him.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to King Richard because I haven't seen it. So I guess I'm probably like the majority of Academy voters where I haven't actually seen all the films before I vote. But I did, I did uh, read slash listen to the audiobook of Will Smith,
Mm-hmm.
his latest kind of memoir. And I guess for me, from what I can see from the outside, he's playing a bit of a tough love dad. And if you've listened to the book, I think you can see why he's drawn to those kind of characters, having a bit of a tough love dad himself, and then some. So I can probably see why he would lean towards wanting to go down the King Richard route, if that is the case. But yeah, I'm afraid I can't add much more than just an outside perspective on that one.
That's absolutely fine. I mean, yeah, it's a long movie. It doesn't need to be as long as it is. But yeah, I mean, I think the movie just you coast on that film so long because his performance is so broad and he's really enjoyable. I mean, there's moments where he has monologues about the the racist divides between people, white and black people living in the same community, and there are real moments in the movie where it is quite profound. But that sometimes gets lost in a sea of sort of comedic moments and cliches. It is a biopic, and it does adhere to the usual rules of a biopic.
Shall we talk about Denzel Washington, the tragedy of Macbeth? A very interesting choice for the role of Macbeth itself.
But he brings a certain sense of restraint to a role, which is notoriously always largely played and broadly played. And the way he even treats the text and he talks with the language is very nonchalant, very fluent, and yeah, I mean, like it's really nice to hear the language of Shakespeare spoken in a way that, yeah, like actually like real people would talk, and you're not kind of flummoxed by it. You just kind of you're on board, and yeah, I thought it was terrific.
Yeah, I thought he was brilliant as Macbeth, but I don't always get on with Shakespeare's text. I don't know what it is. Maybe it was just an overabundance of being taught them in school. But yeah, I just don't always get on with old Willie Shakespeare. But
Oh, so
yeah, Denzel.
you're just uncultured. You're an uncultured swine, as they say.
Uh, I'm sorry, all right. There's only so much flowery language one can get away with, and just if I don't understand it now, did they understand it back then?
Maybe it might be a little bit better if you had, say, a certain Spider-Man whizzing his way across the stage. Would that probably entertain you a little bit more?
Oh, do you know what? If Denzel, yeah, if Denzel was dressing up in red and blue in the middle of the night to kill the king, maybe I would be more interested. No, that is not the case. I did love how Denzel kind of brings a coolness to the text, and no matter if you don't understand what's going on, he kind of brings an emotion to it,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
a kind of a cadence which you were just enthralled by. Yeah, whenever he was on screen, I couldn't look away.
And I think it needed to be a subtle performance as well because the movie is so visually striking that if those two elements were working together, the an overly sort of over the top performance would have probably overpowered the movie and the visuals itself. You kind of had to let both do their thing in their own little way, and yeah, I mean it's a top favorite of the year for me.
Let's talk about Benedict Cumberbatch, The Power of the Dog, a film that I know you and I both really
Oh,
like.
I absolutely adore this movie, and I adore this performance. If it were up to me, Cumberbatch would be taking home the trophy for sure.
I think he has a very good chance because he plays this kind of what first comes across as like quite a grumpy, angry, bitter man,
Yes,
um, and he
he's an alpha male in a very masculine environment, and the time period only underlines that even more.
100%, and you can really, but you can tell there's more going on. Like you can tell he's putting on an act, and
Oh
that's
yeah,
that's you know that's a credit to Benedict Cumberbatch because he's acting as someone who is putting on an act, and he pulls it off beautifully.
oh absolutely. I mean, and speaking about Cumberbatch as an actor, for the last 10 years, like he's really been in the public's mind. Whether he's playing different types of roles, he's always constantly challenging himself. And part of the dog seems to be the apex of what we've known without sort of knowing what he as an actor has always been capable of. I think it's a magnetic performance. Like whenever he is tormenting his brother George's wife, Rose. I mean, the moment with the banjo and the piano, which is Benedict. He just plays it with such a subtlety, but there's such an aggression behind the performance that it's awkward. It's so awkward to watch. It's really uncomfortable viewing, but he really hones in on that without it ever being showy. He's a subtle performer and knows when to pull on the moments when they need traction.
Yeah, and the film sets up as him as the big bad, but then kind of twists it a little bit towards the third act.
Oh
But
yeah.
because of that setup, you're constantly left thinking, is this guy better now, or is
Hmm.
he doing this to trick other characters into thinking he's better? And it's this really interesting tension that's brought about from his performance. Yeah, it lingers throughout the whole film, and it's really good.
And whenever we ever get any moments of Phil Cumberbatch's character when he's in periods of isolation, we discover some really interesting secrets that add up to really build an interesting character, especially in the period of history that the film is set in. He truly embodied the role, I think, for me, and it was a real surprise. He's fantastic, as is everybody in this film, which is no surprise at all. Yeah, looking forward to hopefully him bringing home the award. I think that's nearly a solid lockdown for me.
Ooh, well, I disagree. I think, well, I would like, should I say, Andrew Garfield to win for Tick Tick Boom. It's the only performance in this category that truly blew me away. We all knew Andrew Garfield could act, but he takes on a character here that is larger than life, and
Yeah.
completely sells it.
Well, I'll support you by saying, yeah, it feels like a role Garfield was just made for. He completely we talk about Will Smith paying tribute to Richard Williams. I mean, Garfield is completely worshipping the floor that Jonathan Larson walked on, to a really giddy filled joyful effect. And yeah, he brings such energy to the role and such surprising vigor to the musical moments. The a cappella moment where they're just going around the house, around the flat when they're having the party, and he comes out with this a cappella number is still one of my favorite highlights of the last movie year. He's just absolutely electric.
Yeah, he really sells it, and you. I don't know if you've seen any of the kind of the behind the scenes for this film, but he put a lot of work and a lot of effort into becoming Jonathan Larson, and really honoring who he was and how he was. I think the film is brilliant. A real kind of the film itself snuck up on me,
Yeah.
and I didn't expect it to be quite as good as it was, and really, really made me fall back in love with Andrew Garfield. Not that I fell out of love, but I feel like I've not been as big on some of his recent films of late, but he's really come back. 2021, he was on a high for sure, and it seems to all just be building up now, and I do wonder if. If he just has it to scrape past Benedict Cumberbatch and take that Oscar for Tick Tick Boom, because yeah, there's no other performance that really wowed me like
You know,
his.
I wouldn't be upset if Garfield won it. I really do love him in that movie. It feels like a win for me personally because I know you weren't really a musical theater lover, and I'm the big musical lover out of the two of us. So it
Yeah.
feels like a personal win for me that you love that performance and the movie because it's like a musical theater kid's wet dream in a way.
Oh my god, he's so musical theatre, but I think he's so endearing about it, and I think just the story of somebody really working hard to kind of make that masterpiece that they see in their head, is one that hits close to home to many of us creative. Who do you think will win, and who
Okay,
do you want to win?
I want Benedict Cumberbatch to win. I think Benedict Cumberbatch will win.
I want Andrew Garfield to win. I think Benedict Cumberbatch will win.
Okay. I'll take that. I'll take that. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I think that's a better segue as any into probably talking about actress in a leading role. Should we start off with possibly Olivia Colman for The Lost Daughter?
Yeah, obviously we discussed The Lost Daughter a little bit last week, but I do think Olivia Colman was incredible in that film, and she gives off this naturalistic performance where she really doesn't have to say a lot to know what she's thinking. It's all in her eyes, it's all in her reactions, and even her just watching and observing other people. You just truly know what's going on inside that head, and I think she brought an incredible performance to The Lost Daughter.
Yeah. Also, the movie having the privilege of having the movie come on to Netflix, a lot of mainstream audiences got to see the movie. I mean, most of them that I've spoken to probably weren't so favorable as I was. But anybody who didn't even like the film will even agree that Olivia Colman was impressive in that movie, and she was the best thing about it. Yeah, it's undoubtedly the highlight of the film. It's interesting that even though that she won a few years ago for portraying Queen Anne of England in Yorgos Lanthimos's The Favourite, I still think she's the front runner this year for Best Actress. I mean, if you look at we'll speak more in depth about the other the actresses in this category, but I think she's a real standout, and I mean it's a testament to the role and the performance itself when people who don't even like the movie thought she was amazing.
Shall we quickly move over to Jessica Chastain? Only because I'm yeah. The Eyes of Tammy Faye had a very short-lived cinema experience in the UK, and I know I didn't get around to seeing it. Did you?
It was actually we were speaking, me and my girlfriend Lauren were speaking about maybe going to see it last weekend. It had like two times on a weekend, and I was like, maybe we'll catch up with it next week, and it just disappeared. It just disappeared. It was never like it came and went, unless you were searching for it, you would not have known it was even showing in your local multiplex. But I'm excited to catch up with it. I know there was a little interesting sort of Twitter conversation surrounding the film. I don't know if you heard about this before it came out, where people thought that her face was scarred, Jessica Chastain. Like there was some sort of like rumor about a makeup test that went wrong, and that she was like quickly taken to the A&E ward, only to find that Chastain later on posted on Twitter that what are you talking about? This never happened. But having said that, it was easy to believe once you saw the audacious prosthetics that are being put on her face in the trailer of this film.
Yeah, she's truly transformed, to say the least. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to catching up with it, and got my main man, Andrew Garfield in it as well. So
Be honest, that's the catalyst for you catching up on this film, isn't it?
there are a few actors that just capture me, man, and he's one of them. He's one of them.
Okay, we'll add that to the list of actors that Alex wants to marry. Pretty predominantly men, should I say, at the minute?
Well, let's not spoil it. I might drop a new one every episode. Shall we discuss Kristen Stewart in Spencer?
Oh boy, this is the real big topic at the minute, right?
She's the favorite, right?
Is she the favorite? Ask me 5 or 6 months ago who was going to win the Best Actress award. Stewart all the way. But the conversation over the last month and the sort of nastiness that's turned on Stewart has kind of got me thinking otherwise.
Yeah, she wasn't. There's been a few award shows before this. The kind of ones that lead up to the Oscars that give people an idea of how the winners might go. And yeah, Spencer was just kind of fully taken off the nominations for a lot of those.
Yeah, I mean, no Golden Globe nomination, not even a nomination, no SAG award nomination. So that's a big no-no. I mean, I think I was almost surprised that she even got a Best Actress nomination in this category, seeing that those two award ceremonies are pretty much the lead up to the Oscars, and they kind of inform whether or not a performer is going to be nominated or not.
Do you, not to turn us into a conspiracy theorist podcast, but do you think the monarchy have anything to do with this? It doesn't particularly show them in the best of lights, and maybe that is my issue with the film. Not because of that reason, but because it doesn't really tell us anything new about Princess Diana, and I'm just going to chuck it out there. Controversial statement alert. Kristen Stewart, I think, did a really good impersonation of Diana, but I don't think she is the best actress in this lineup. No doubt she was good, and no doubt she could.
You say she was good, but you didn't like her. So why you're you can't be on two sides of the camp here, Alex.
It's difficult. It's difficult because you can witness an actress doing good work, but at the same time, it takes you out of the film, and I think maybe
because you felt like you were watching the machinations.
Yeah, because what she was doing was like again, I don't want to be rude, but like to me was like an impersonation of the Diana that we've seen in the public eye on interviews and stuff like that, and it carried over even to in those private moments where she's with her kids and she's got all these kind of mannerisms and these quirks of and ways of talking, and I just thought, do you know what? It feels thought out, and unfortunately for me, it was the big thing in the film that kind of kept taking me out. I never truly believed I was watching Princess Diana. Which obviously, because it's got the baggage involved, but I just never settled into Kristen Stewart's performance. But I also don't think it's her fault. I just think Princess Diana is one of those characters which are, anybody playing that is going to have a hard time to create the illusion that they are that person.
Well, you speak negatively on the fact that it feels like an impersonation. Watching the film, I felt that was to the film's strength. And it's a role that really plays to Stewart's strength as an actor. And I know you felt like it leaned into the realm of caricature at times, but I think that's completely untrue. I mean, it's a mannered and dialed in performance, and we can't argue that's exactly how the real Diana portrayed herself to the world, right? she's such a fish out of water here, and the melodrama really helps lean into the film's more horrifying moments. And I'll say right here, I remembered my experience of watching Spencer as almost like a psychological horror movie. That probably challenged audiences too much. The problem really is this. I think, Alex, general audiences really still see Stewart as an actress, as Bella Swan from the Twilight Saga. Um, and really, that's kind of overshadowed the great work she's done in the last 10 years. And people always say she looks so awkward and so uncomfortable in the role. And I always thought that was a virtue of Kristen Stewart's, and I think there's no better role for her to play than Diana, who in herself was a creature of discomfort, who really didn't feel like she was in the right place at the right time, and she was trapped. And I completely got that from this movie. I thought Stewart was amazing. I think the best performance of the year.
Okay, agree to disagree. Agree to disagree on that one. Though I do believe that Kristen Stewart has shaken her Twilight mantle. The same with Robert Pattinson as well. I
Oh, of
think they've both done
course.
enough work to show that they're very
Pattinson
capable
more
actors.
so.
You reckon? They're both.
Yeah,
It's kind of weird. They've both gone down the route of they're both indie darlings now. At the end of the day,
yeah. I think The Lighthouse though did really good work for Pattinson though. I think that movie is really has stretched itself out of the realm of indie, whereas Stewart's last couple of movies probably stayed in its own sort of subculture where it hasn't really reached main audiences. And I really just I yearn for people just to kind of get her a bit more because I think she's great.
shall we? We'll very quickly discuss Nicole Kidman and Being the Ricardos because, again, as we've already mentioned, Chris, you've not seen Being the Ricardos. You've got no interest in seeing it, and yeah, no,
No,
I'm not.
no. Can I ask you?
I'm not going to be the guy pushing you into watching Being the Ricardos because it's fine. It's fine, and Nicole Kidman is fine.
I don't think there's anybody. I don't think there's anybody going like, you need to watch Being the Ricardos right now. Yeah, that's just not a conversation that's happening anywhere.
So the final person on this list that we haven't spoken about yet is Penelope Cruz for Parallel Mothers, which I'm really happy is getting some love. I'm a big Pedro Almodovar fan, and he seems to always be at his best when working with Penelope Cruz, which has been a lot of his
Yeah,
films recently.
I mean, it's no doubt. I mean, if you've watched any of Almodovar's movies, that you know that by this time you know that Cruz is his muse. He uses her a lot in movies, and she's always absolutely electric in these films. And I'm glad that she made it onto this category. If it urges people who haven't seen Cruise in a movie that isn't English language to kind of go out of their way to see this, because she's amazing. Whenever she is doing an Almodovar film, she is absolutely turned on to what the role requires of her. And it's no surprise she was amazing in this. We all knew it. That was the guarantee that you had going into this movie, as it always is.
Yeah, she's excellent, and she, you know, like with a lot of Almodovar's film, it crosses that line of being art house and melodrama,
Yeah.
and she really kind of sells the kind of emotional, heightened nature of the role, along with kind of like, you know,
Yeah, the telenovela sort of stuff of the insane close-ups and the television shots of opening the door and your ex-lover being there, and there's loads of moments like that, and she knows exactly how to play the camera. I mean, she just grabs your attention. I would not be upset if she if she even had a chance of winning the award. I would be happy with that.
yeah, there's an emotional subtlety to the role as well. She doesn't reveal everything, and yeah, she walks that line so well. And yeah, I feel like this is one of her best performances in a long time. In a string of very good performances from Penelope Cruz. But yeah, keep working with Pedro Almodovar because those two together are a dream team.
For sure.
So who do you think will win, and who would you like to win?
Okay, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I would really, really like Kristen Stewart to win this award. I do think, however, Coleman's going to run away with it.
I would like Olivia Colman to win it. But I actually think Kristen Stewart will win it.
You don't think Nicole Kidman's gonna win
I do not.
it? Fair enough, Alex. Should we move on to perhaps the best supporting actor category?
Let's.
Okay, so let's start off with here. Pretty strong performance. Um, Kieran Hines in Belfast. It was a charming performance from an always sort of charming actor. He's a bit of an Irish legend, Kieran Hines, and this is a really likable performance from him, I'll say. I mean, the moments between his grandson Buddy and him when he's trying to give him advice about the girl in school that he really likes is quite sweet and reminded me a lot of the paternal figures that I grew up with in Northern Ireland. He kind of hit the nail on the head there a little bit for me, and yeah, I thought he was very good.
Yeah, I think it's easier for you, obviously, to relate to a film like Belfast.
Hmm.
I found Kieran Hines to be sweet. I thought he played a good role, um, but I don't think it was Oscar worthy at the end of the day. I not to be rude, but I don't think he's given any big moment to be flashy or anything like that. It's a constant kind of nice uncle vibe that he gives
Yeah,
off, and
yeah, he's definitely comfortable in the role. I mean,
he
it's
play
definitely in his realm, isn't it?
he plays the part that he was given. But yeah, I don't think there's anything here that makes me think we should be handing out awards.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you there. Probably in a similar sort of vein, I will talk about Troy Kotzer in Coda, a movie I absolutely adored. I'm just so glad that Coda is just getting the attention that I didn't think it was going to get. It came out kind of halfway through the last year, free Apple. So yeah, it's really good that these performances are getting looked at. A nice surprise in a way, due probably because I'm a bit biased towards loving the movie, and the whole cast in general is really nice to see. It's nice to see him sneak onto the ballot this year, but it wasn't certainly a performance that first came to my mind when thinking about the best of the year.
I really like Troy Kotzer in Coda. He was the strongest supporting element of that film, mainly because he has the big, heavy, hitting, emotional scenes that make you cry. Coda's a weird
Yes.
one. I really love it, same as you. But it doesn't. It's an odd one for the Oscar because it doesn't feel like an Oscar movie. It's really nice and it's really good, and I'm glad it's getting some nominations because I don't think I would have watched it until it was nominated
Mm-hmm.
for an Oscar because
Yeah,
it was just one of those films that kind of passed me by, and I only thought to catch up with it because of all this awards buzz. But yeah, he gets the big moments and he sells them really well. And I was crying like a baby a lot of the time, like he was on screen. So
yeah.
maybe he deserves it. I don't know.
You like me. I don't know if you're like me. I am an easy cry. And it definitely solicited some teary moments from me. And yeah, if I'm being very true to how I felt about the movie, I think the moment with Troy and his daughter, um, where she sings to him in the backyard of their house is one of those moments that really like it's a, you know what, you're made of stone if you don't sort of well up at that. I mean, it's a broad movie with broad performances, and I think that's probably why it's harder to sort of hone in why the performances are so good because they are sort of fitting a movie that is sort of goes down a cliche path, but you know what? It's doing what it does really well and probably better than any other movie that does it that fits into that genre.
Shall we talk about Jesse Plemons in The Power of the Dog?
Yeah, I think so. If I had it my way, Alex, again, I think it would probably be steered towards j- probably Cody Smith McPhee more than Jesse Plemons. But we'll talk about Jesse Plemons. I think he handles the role with a really gentle touch, and he's a man of subtlety. The moments between him and his wife Rose are really tender and juxtaposed with his brother Phil, played by Cumberbatch. He's a really likable role, and Jesse Plemons is just someone I've always had an eye on ever since watching him in the incredibly funny movie Game Night, where he plays the eccentrically weird neighbor. Ever since that movie, I've been like really looking forward to anything that Jesse Plemons has came up in. And I, you know what, fair play to the guy. If he runs away with the award, I'd be cheering on his side.
Do you know, I Jesse Plemons is a weird one. I remember him in Like Mike. Did you ever watch Like Mike?
Was he in Like Mike?
He was like the kid that was giving like Lil Bow Wow a little bit of a hard time, but
Oh
then
my
later
goodness.
became like a friend and somebody you could rely on. It's such a weird one. Every time I see him, I'm like, that's the
That's
kid from Like
bizarre.
Mike. He has grown past that and is now truly an incredible actor.
That is
Breaking
so bizarre.
Bad.
I haven't seen Like Mike since I was a kid, but I used to watch it like every week, and that movie seems like a memory now. I never really paid attention to who was in it, or never did it really click to me that Jesse Plemons was in it. So like that, this is just like open new can of worms for me.
It's weird. It's weird. Go back on YouTube and watch him. It's very odd. I don't know why I always remembered his face, and when he turned back up in like Breaking Bad, I was like, that's the kid from Like Mike. And then obviously he's only gone on to do greater things and showcases kind of his commitment to just being able to take any
Oh
character and
yeah,
make
yeah,
it funny, make
absolutely.
it serious. You were saying Game Night. Recently, Jungle Cruise, he played like a very interesting German, antagonist to the film. Yeah, he's good here, but he plays a more quieter, subtle role here. It's not as showy, and I agree. I think he's fighting against his co-star Cody Smith McPhee in this category, and I think Cody gives a more memorable performance in the film, despite them both having large chunks of the film where they're just not present.
Yeah, that is a quite interesting point I didn't think about before. But it's interesting even as a screen presence that Cody Smith McPhee, even before he has any dialogue, when he shows up on screen, he's so skinny, and that physicality he brings in contrast with all the overtly masculine characters that live on the ranch in Power of the Dog really sets you on edge. But the power dynamics between McPhee he deploys in the latter part of this film are really what kind of solidified him in my memory. How assured he is in his own body. I speak about a certain moment when he is in a certain shot when he is walking past a line of ranch workers where they're all shouting insults at him, and he just ignores any of those slurs and coming his way. And it's a real highlight of the power plays of masculinity, and really underlines who maybe really is the real man in this situation.
Yeah, and his kind of slender physicality really lends to the role he's playing. He doesn't look normal in this
Yeah,
world.
it's
He,
disarming, isn't it?
in this heavily masculine, heavily kind of cowboy mentality between these ranch workers.
Hmm.
He brings a boyish, feminine side to things, which
Yes.
obviously plays into a bigger thing in the film,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
that kind of physicality he brings to his performance just really kind of solidifies it as a memorable one for me.
It not only strengthens his character, but it also strengthens Cumberbatch's character. We know that Cumberbatch's character is repressed and isn't acting in a way that I think deep down he would really want to express himself as. And I think he admires the self assurance that Peter, Cody Smith McPhee's character, brings, and it really only adds to the layers and the dynamics between them in the third act of the movie. It's a great movie. I hope he gets the attention because he's been around for the last sort of 10 or so years, and yeah, it's great to see him really on the radar again.
And just very quickly, J.K. Simmons and being the Ricardos. J.K. Simmons is always great.
Surprise, surprise.
He's funny in the role. It's a very small role. It's being the
Look,
Ricardos is a weird film on this Oscar nomination list.
look,
It's I don't know what Aaron Sorkin's got on the Academy. He's clearly a good writer, but yeah, I'm not sure how this piece of work has gathered as much recognition as it has. Nothing's bad, but nothing's particularly amazing either.
again, I haven't seen the film, but we know what we know the type of role that JK is playing here. Even before you sit down and watch the movie, I could probably have a really good idea of what that performance would look like. Um, so yeah, I'm sure it's fine, but I really doubt if it's going to really run away with this award.
Who do you think will win, and who would you like to win?
Okay, if I think I know the Academy, which I really, really don't, especially in a year like this. I think it will go towards Cody Smith McPhee, and I really want it to go to him as well. I think it's a justified win.
Yeah, I would like Cody Smith McPhee to win as well. But I've got this feeling that Jesse Plemons might actually take that one.
That's interesting. Um, okay, should we move on to Best Supporting Actress?
Let's.
Okay, so should we start with Ingenue Ellis for King Richard? Again, King Richard was a movie I liked. It was very conventional, but whenever Ingenue Ellis showed up and whenever she was scolding her husband, King Richard, or Richard Williams, and in those moments where she has a monologue or two, she really shines and she is the strongest element of the movie. Probably the only thing that's sort of really grounded, and she's the only sort of person in the movie that calls out Richard on his behavior. And there's a specific moment where there's this 5 minute dialogue, Alex, where she really, really shines and really leans into it. And it's just a shame there weren't more moments like that in the film.
That's good to hear. I don't know this actress, and obviously I don't know the film, so I'm definitely going to keep an eye out when I get around to catching up with King Richard.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very watchable movie, and I have no doubt that you will enjoy her input into it. No doubt.
Kris, I would like to know your thoughts on Judi Dench in Belfast, because obviously you are from Belfast or close to Belfast, and
Yeah.
Judi Dench plays a Northern Irish character, but she's not Northern Irish herself. What do you think of the accent?
Oh boy. Oh boy. You know what? I got to be fair. I'm always going to bring when it's a movie about specifically about the place you grew up in or you were born in, and there's not many movies made about that certain place. You're going to bring a certain baggage towards it. I understand that. I mean, I'm a grown up. I can respect that. I think actually her performance is quite good. I think it's quite good, and the maternal instincts that she brings towards the character. But yeah, the accent stinks. It really stinks. If you're from Northern Ireland, you know. Well, first of all, she doesn't sound Northern Irish. It's more like a bad Southern Irish accent. Um, like I don't know why. But it's obviously Kenneth Branagh is trying to bring a little bit of star power to the movie. A lot of people really like Judi Dench. It gets bums on seats. It was fine. It's definitely not best supporting actress worthy though, in my opinion.
Do you think maybe your sister's text saying you sound like an American was maybe meant for Judi Dench and not you?
Have you seen Artemis Fowl yet?
Yeah, I'm surprised she was willing to work with Kenneth Branagh again after Artemis
I'm
Fowl.
surprising. I'm surprised he was willing to work with her again after the line delivery of "Top of the Morning" to you.
Oh man, yeah, Judi Dench. I mean, I feel like I'm making the same point for a lot of these. It's like, yeah, she was there and she was good and she was Judi Dench. You can't put a foot wrong. But I'll
Perhaps
take.
we're just spoiled this year. Are we
Maybe
spoiled
maybe
this
we
year?
are. Maybe we are. Or maybe there are just some that really stand out amongst the others. And Judi Dench is the others in this case.
Well, if we're working away from Judi Dench now, I think we're getting into the real heavy hitters of this category now. I mean, how about we start with Jessie Buckley for The Lost Daughter? Again, another performer in this film that audiences, even if they didn't like the movie, agreed that she was a really key part of what made that movie work. She, in tandem with Olivia Colman, they're both equally amazing performances, I think.
I'd love to know more about their kind of relationship to this film, because Jessie Buckley plays she's like, she wouldn't be my first choice to play the younger version of Olivia Colman.
Yeah,
And she brings about this performance that is her own and is very different, but she draws on these mannerisms that are very, very unique to Olivia Colman, but they're so subtle in this younger version.
absolutely.
And I believed it. I believed it.
Yeah, it's not an emulation of what Coleman's doing accent wise or facially. There are hints of the woman she becomes, and sort of the traits of Coleman in there, but she definitely makes it her own. But she still manages to ground it in. We know that this is the same person.
Yeah,
Just Jessie Buckley is just such an exciting actress.
yeah.
She's been doing such great work in the last couple of years, and no wonder Hollywood is just eating her up at the minute.
Yeah, yeah, she's really taken me by surprise. I think she's excellent, and she's excellent here. And I think just that kind of, this could have easily gone down the impersonation route.
Oh, 100%.
But you know, she's really made a role her own that is not actually her own. Like, it's shared with another actor. But yeah,
I think that's a really good
she's
point
excellent.
you've I think that's a really good point that you've just touched on, because I think Coleman, we all know Coleman is really lo- a personality that we both know. We know what her voice sounds like. We know how she acts, and it's really hard for a performer like Jessie Buckley to go in there and not replicate what Coleman's doing. And I think that's really a testament to how strong that performance is. Yeah, I'm talking myself into really rooting for her this year, actually, as we speak.
Who else? Who else are you rooting for then, Chris?
Okay, I know you didn't catch up on West Side Story, which I don't know why. Um, Seeing that you're now a recently converted musical theater kid after watching Tick Tick Boom, um,
Did it have Andrew Garfield in it?
I think he was in the background. He was pushing like a
Oh,
he was pushing like a
oh,
dustbin in the background. And he said, yeah, he was
oh,
waving.
okay. Oh, yeah. All
You
right.
didn't see him?
Well, I guess I'll have to give it a watch now. That was my main thing. I was like,
If that's what gets you to watch West Side Story, please go ahead and watch it. It is, I know it is coming to streaming the 2nd of March, so please catch up with it.
yeah, I
Yeah,
definitely will. I definitely will.
but Ariana DeBose, I mean, like one of the big major finds of this last year. I mean, she was actually I played a small role in the ensemble cast of the Hamilton movie. Where
Okay.
we all got treated to. She plays one of the dancers, and yeah, obviously Spielberg spent a lot of time on the casting for West Side Story. It's one of the biggest casting sort of nets that he's ever pulled on a movie. He spent quite a few years trying to get the right actors, and he really, really nailed it with the part that Ariana DeBose plays. She plays it with such confidence and tribute to the original movie. She's a triple threat. I mean, she's one of those really rare finds, and like Jessie Buckley, where she's came out of nowhere. We're going to start seeing her in a lot more movies, and I think Ariana DeBose has a really, really strong year. I'm really rooting for her.
Yeah, Spielberg's got a very good eye for casting, and I can't wait to catch her performance. Such a shame he dropped the ball with Ansel Elgort.
I think you're being, yeah. Obviously, we know the discourse around Ansel Elgort at the minute. Yeah, he's good. He actually is good in the movie, but it's a testament to how good Spielberg's casting is for all of these new actors or these Broadway actors that he's put in the film. That Ansel Elgort is actually the weakest element in the movie, even though he turns in a pretty good performance.
And then finally, Kirsten Dunst in The Power of the Dog, which is just kind of sweeping away with the Oscar nominations.
Wow.
It's a beautiful film. It's a cinematographer's film. It sounds amazing, and clearly it's an actor's film. Kirsten Dunst here plays a
Mhm.
brilliant character, a doting mother. Um,
Yes.
you know, later on in the film, an alcoholic, somebody who really is struggling with the times and the hypermasculinity that's going on and how it affects her son. It's yeah, no, it's a really brilliant performance where she kind of straddles the line of like protective mother and kind of new lover with Jesse Plemons, who she is actually, I don't know if she's married, potentially married to in real life. Yeah,
Yeah, I
couple
didn't know
Oscar
this.
nominations.
Yeah, I was strolling.
Goals.
I was scrolling through my IMDb page the other day, and it came up. It does its monthly power couples sort of article, and I was scrolling through, and I saw that they were like both being photographed together. I was like, really, they're a real life couple. That makes so much sense as to why their chemistry on screen is really really strong. Yeah, Dunst is she's just such an incredible actress. I've always been such a fan of her. She's great. She's great in this movie, particularly in the moments where she is being tormented by Cumberbatch's character Phil. The moments where she resorts to alcoholism. She really plays it suspiciously well. It's she's brilliant, maternal, very very sympathetic, but she does it with an effortlessness that you can almost wash over you, as to seeming like, there's not much work behind that performance. But watching it a second time, as I did recently, she really did capture my attention. I could really see the good work she was doing in that movie. Incredible.
Yeah, she's had a brilliant career, and I mean, if anything, she deserves an Oscar win at this point because
Mm-hmm.
she's been in a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, plainly, even I'm biased. One of my favorite movies, Kiki's Delivery Service. I love a good Ghibli movie, and in the English dub, she does the voice. So yeah, she'll always be in favor for me for that.
So, out of those, Chris, who would you like to win, and who do you think will win?
You know what? I think this is one of the toughest categories. It's really, really, really strong. Apart from Dench, I think I would really love, more than any category we've talked about so far, I would love Ariana DeBose to win this, because I think you'll recognize it once you see the film, how amazing she really is. And I think it's a really hard one. I think DeBose can walk away with it this year. I'm ready for a surprise.
Do you know what? I've heard good things, and I think she could win. I'm gonna go with Jessie Buckley as the person I would like to win. It's between her and Kirsten Dunst.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jessie Buckley really her kind of role, that dual role with Olivia Colman, really sold me on her acting chops.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So that really leads us now to the best picture category. Would you say?
Let's do it. Let's do it. So up for best picture. Up for best picture, we have Belfast, Coda, Don't Look Up, Drive My Car, Dune, King Richard, Licorice Pizza, Nightmare Alley, The Power of the Dog, and West Side Story. Chris, we've spoken briefly about Belfast. I think it was an odd film. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. But it's one of those films where I expected, because of the title, the place to take more of a. I expected the city to be more of a character in the film, and
Yeah,
it felt like it took place in a couple of streets. Obviously, we knew it was Northern Ireland because it addressed the Troubles, and
yeah.
everybody's accents, good or bad. But
Like,
it didn't tiptoe the line of kind of childhood innocence and trying to say something about the Troubles, um, in a particularly good way, if you ask me. I don't think it was very subtle. And I liked it, but I always felt like I wanted more from this film.
yeah, I'm really struggling. I'm towing the line between whether its lack of subtlety is a strong point or a weak point. Um, it's kind of nice to see the lack of subtlety and the broad strokes applied to the movie, because almost at times, and especially the latter part of the movie, feels almost like you're watching a musical that isn't, it's shot very dreamlike and has a sort of childish wonder to it, and it's quite interesting to see the troubles tackled in a way that has a little bit of whimsy at times, and maybe takes liberties with the real elements to kind of replace them with more fictitious, childlike moments. Yeah, I'm with you though. I mean, I wish the movie was a little bit broader in its scope. It did feel like it was just on a set at times. And Branagh, I should have expected this from him. I think it's good filmmaking from him, but he is a very sloppy filmmaker. As much as I love him, he lacks the refinement to really carry off a movie that I think that he's really intended to make. And some of the character choices just, yeah, they just didn't work for me.
So Coda, we both admitted that
Oh,
we cried at this one. I think it's an odd choice because it doesn't feel like Oscar bait. It's really sweet. It's got this beautiful story that we haven't really seen about a family who's deaf and their one child who isn't.
hmm
And her kind of love for music, which her family can't get a full handle on because of their hearing impairments.
yeah.
But it's beautiful. But now let's go back to that. It's beautiful. Um, it's a beautiful, beautiful story. But I think the cinematography lets it down. There's nothing bad going on, but there's nothing striking or interesting going. I think if the camera moved around a bit more and it was a little bit more showy,
hmm
um, I think you could have had an Oscar winner here. But unfortunately, Coda just doesn't isn't up to par with some of the level of actual filmmaking. But I guess having a story and performances to rely on, they are the showy parts of the film. But yeah, the actual filming, the cinematography didn't blow me away. Do you feel the same way?
Um, I didn't really think about the cinematography in that way. I never felt like it was a crutch. I think it does what it needs to do in the moment, moment to
It's
moment, and I think
functional.
like, yeah, it functions, and I think it's really just a medium to sort of or a stage just for these great performances. Um, I think if you were too showy with the camera, it would only again same similar thing to the Macbeth movie. It would only underline the performances and probably camp it up even more and possibly move it into the realm of melodrama, which the movie Coda is actually in danger of tipping into melodrama and almost that overly cuteness comes into play from time to time, but it manages to just get the levels right where on putty in its hand. Um, yeah, and some hilarious moments in there too. I mean, I won't spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it, but you'll be really caught off guard by how moving and funny this movie is.
Don't Look Up, maybe one of the more
Ugh,
controversial movies on this list. Yeah, go on,
give
Chris.
me a
You
break.
you start with this one.
No, no. Oh man, honestly, anytime I have to talk about this movie, it probably takes about a year off my life. Like Adam McKay, I love Adam McKay. When he used to work with Will Ferrell, whether it's Step Brothers, Anchorman, anything like that, I absolutely love that. Ever since he sort of transitioned himself into this sort of social political sort of landscape that he's put himself in with The Big Short, I'm just not really on board. It's so over the top, and which I get it. Don't Look Up is a not a spoof, it's a satire, but it's so self-assured and it's so giddy and it's grinning at itself the whole time you watch it. I can almost feel McKay's grimace coming through the camera while watching the movie, and I just find the whole thing kind of crass and kind of irritating. Um, yeah, it didn't work. It didn't work for me.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree. I enjoyed it, but I do agree that it was playing to an audience that already had the kind of views that it has. Like it's not it's not saying anything that we didn't already learn during the pandemic about our society and how maybe some of our higher powers react to things. Kris, you've seen Drive My Car. I think you might have spoken a little about it last week.
Yeah, I
But
referenced it last
please,
week.
please go ahead. Let me know. Do you think it's worthy of an Oscar?
Yeah, no, I think it's amazing. I'm so surprised that even it got recognized as a Best Picture nominee. Yeah, please, I urge more people to see it. It's a shame it just hasn't. It's being released in more screens around the country now. Go out of your way because it's a terrific film, and I think even though it's got a daunting 3 hour runtime, it definitely doesn't feel like that. And even if you aren't used to watching a subtitle film, I think you'll still find much to like about it.
That's good to know. That's good to know. And I'm looking forward to catching up on that film when I get 3 hours of spare time.
It's fine. Why do you don't need to be awake when you go to work. It's fine. You can do 5 hours a night, can you? 5 hours
Oh
sleep. It's
man,
easy.
Kris, I love my sleep too much. So Dune. I know you're a big
Dune.
fan. I'm a big fan. Dune ranks highly on my list. It's an
Absolutely.
epic. Denis
Mhm.
Villeneuve is clearly in his element whenever he's making sci-fi. He truly is a masterful filmmaker
Oh, the snub of the year
that
that he
just
didn't
gets
get picked.
size and scope, and he understands epic. He
Yeah.
understands an epic,
Yes.
and clearly, taking on Dune, he put a lot of thought and a lot of love into it.
Yeah. He's obviously taken a lot away from the biblical epics of the 1950s and the 60s. When you talk about movies like the Ten Commandments or Ben Hur or Lawrence of Arabia, especially for this film, the visuals are just so awe inspiring where you just want to sit in them. I remember I went to go see it on an opening night with on an IMAX screen. It was just absolutely. I was transported onto this desert planet of Arrakis. The soundscape, the visuals, the performances, everything was working in tandem, and it's such difficult material as well because I've managed to take the time out of out last year to catch up with the book, and it's difficult text. I mean, I read it. I was like, how can anybody turn this into a faithful adaptation of this incredibly ambitious novel? But Villeneuve just obviously he had it in his head from a young age. He said that it was the first sort of um, thing he ever wanted to make ever since he read Dune as a kid. He was like, I'm going to make that as a movie. Usually when you hear that from directors, you're like, oh god, no, a passion project. They're way in too much into this and they end up not really being that terribly incredible whenever they're released. But the guy knew what he was doing and it was evident, and Dune was a big hit. I'm so happy to see it as a best picture nominee. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, as an adaptation, it's he's put a lot of thought into the medium of film and how it looks, which is incredible. How it sounds, which is just it blasts your eardrums and really like
Yeah.
takes you to that world. Yeah, and then obviously the performances on top. Timothy Chalamet, Zendaya. Um,
Hmm.
Oscar Isaac, Papa Dune himself. It's honestly, yeah, it's a film that fires on all cylinders.
Yeah, I'm very interested to watch it at home. Very interested to watch it at home because it's so a movie that is so made for the big screen that I'm scared to watch it at home. I don't want it to taint
Yeah,
my
I
original
get
viewing.
that, but yeah, I'm looking forward to picking up like a 4K Blu-ray and whacking it
Yeah.
in
Oh
and
no,
seeing
have you
how it
seen the
looks soon.
collector's Blu-ray they've released? It's gorgeous.
Is it?
Oh, it's OTT, but it's great. Yeah, if anybody wants to buy me that for my birthday, which is November the 2nd, you can add that to my Amazon wish list. I might attach the link.
uh, Next film on the list is obviously King Richard. Um, Obviously, we've spoken at length because it's had quite a bit of Oscar buzz and Oscar
Yeah,
nominations. But I obviously haven't seen it, as we've mentioned. Kris, give us a quick kind of lowdown on as to your general thoughts as to it being on this list.
Like, yeah, it's like one of those movies like turns up on a best picture nominee list, and you know it's going to be on there. It's a well made biopic. There's nothing really much to say about it. It leans into convention. It's too probably too long. It's very very watchable, Alex. I mean, like, even if you're daunted by the really long run time, you're gonna have a good time of it. It's very watchable. You'll catch yourself off guard. You might be angry at yourself that you're having such a great time because you can see machinations of it working at it all the time, and there's definitely rhythms and pacing that you're used to. But yeah, it's conventional, but it works, and sure, it's fine.
Licorice Pizza. What did you think of that one?
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I'm glad that it turned out. I was getting to the point where I thought Paul Thomas Anderson's movie Licorice Pizza was never going to turn up in any nomination list.
Yeah, I absolutely love this film. It feels like Paul Thomas Anderson watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and said, "Yeah, I want to do that too,"
Yeah.
but kind of made it smaller, made it more personal,
Oh yeah.
and really kind of, despite the time period, could be set at any time. This kind of semi romance kind of weird relationship that these two characters have, and
Hmm.
it's brilliant. It's really good. It kind of really looks into the human soul and what we expect from relationships and who we want and what we want out of relationships. And yeah, it just so
Especially in
happens to
youth.
be cast in it just so happens to be set in Hollywood, and around a time when there's a lot of big movie stars walking about. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's kind of nostalgia and rose tinted glasses, but it's just it's an excellent film with excellent performances. And yeah, no, I can't stop thinking about Licorice Pizza. Yeah, it's one of my favorite films on this list, if not my favorite film on the list.
Yeah, interesting what you said about the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood parallel there. I would agree, and I would say it's probably even better than Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's just the slight touches that Paul Thomas Anderson brings to his movies. He is way more a guy of subtlety, whilst also really leaning into what we love about cinema: the great cinematography, the performances, the music choices he makes in this movie. It's so great. I'm so grateful just to see a movie that doesn't use the obvious music choices for a change. You know, we had
Yeah,
Cruella last year, and like every time you had a song plug coming in, it was like, oh right, okay, it's never one of those. Or even when you go back to Joker and he's like dancing, Gary Glitter, yeah, we know that song, but he knows how to work the songs into the narrative that makes sense and really suit the time period in the piece and make it more authentic.
yeah, it's just it feels very personal, and it feels very human. Um,
Yeah,
I feel like Paul Thomas Anderson is like a chameleon of a director, and he's
of course. Yeah,
really good at just running with whatever he's got. And he gets some brilliant performances out of his actors who are pretty much first time actors in the leads. Yeah,
yes,
it's a brilliant film. It makes me love film and cinema. So Kris, Nightmare Alley. Did you catch that one?
yeah, yeah. Obviously heard a bit of buzz towards the latter part of last year whenever Nightmare Alley was getting marketed. I managed to catch up with the original film starring
Yes,
Tyrone
yes, as
Powers,
did I.
as did you.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, which was I was really impressed with, and only intrigued me even more. I was really interested to see what Guillermo del Toro really had left to say about this film that is quite really well explored in its original outing. But yeah, I he does the thing that Guillermo del Toro does really well. He brings that nastiness to the movie, like really brings his sense of visual flair, and he really gets a performance out of Bradley Cooper that's probably one of his best, if not one of his best performances that I've seen from him to date. He it really hones into the narcissistic side of this character and the real transition. And yeah, I bathed in the movie. I thought I had a really really good time.
I wonder if I would agree more with you on Bradley Cooper had I not seen the original Nightmare Alley, because yeah, Guillermo del Toro clearly loves the original. It doesn't really, uh, f- it
No.
doesn't stray far from what that story was. But for me, interestingly, like I really enjoyed the film. I really enjoyed the set design, the style, the look of it. It looked great. It looked beautiful. Um, but Bradley Cooper, like, wasn't bad, but his energy that he brought to the role of Stan, I think he wasn't as charismatic as Tyrone Power was in the 1947 film. I think I believed that Stan in 1947 was he could woo the ladies and he could get in with the rich and he could swindle them and he could do this, whereas Bradley Cooper brings a lower energy to the film. He's kind of a more of a conniving, he's a thinker when it comes to taking advantage of people. He's thinking about things. He's more in his head. He's not letting people in on his ideas. He's an internal schemer. Whereas he doesn't bring the charisma that Tyrone Power does. I don't necessarily think that means he's given a bad performance. I think it means he's given a very different performance. But I think it
Mhm.
changes the tone of the film. Um, the Fall from Grace. I didn't care as much, and it wasn't as big and it wasn't as loud. It was a quieter fall from grace, but maybe a more naturalistic and more human way of showing things, because obviously films from the 40s have a tendency to be a little bit larger than life. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I preferred the original Nightmare Alley over this. I'm a
Oh,
big
that's
fan of Del
interesting.
Toro, and I enjoyed the film. But there was just something lacking from me. I think I wanted it to hit harder into the noir elements, and
Okay.
I think it didn't hit those kind of strides as well as I would have liked it to have. Onto your what I think is potentially your favorite film out of this list, The Power of the Dog. Again, we have spoken at
Yeah,
length
we
already about this, so we'll be brief.
yeah,
But
we'll be
go
brief.
on, give us the lowdown, Chris.
Oh,
Why did you love it?
I loved it for all the reasons stated previously when talking about the best actor categories. I just think it's a really a strong movie. I managed to catch up with Jane Campion's most probably famous film from the 90s, The Piano. And I was just so fascinated by the way that she, as a director, used the camera and really knew how to cast her actors, probably disarmingly casting people that you wouldn't really expect in these roles. And she really plays into melodrama, but she holds it with a restraint. And I was really excited to watch Power of the Dog after catching up with the piano, and I think that movie is a masterpiece. And I think this movie is reaching into that realm of masterpiece status as well. It's just so well thought out. All the pieces really really fit together. She knows exactly where to put the camera, and when you watch it a second time and you're watching all the pieces that you had to watch the first time around all come together, it really makes it for repeated interesting viewing.
Yeah, I think the Power of the Dog's gonna stay around for a while, and I think we're gonna talk about it for a long time. It is actually my first Jane Campion film. I feel bad about saying that. I do need to catch up on her other works, but yeah, this was a masterpiece. I mean, just the landscape, cinematography. Like these beautiful mountains. The kind of
Yeah.
the themes of toxic masculinity in a genre that's defined by it, and kind of breaking those barriers down. That some beautiful stuff going on in The Power of the Dog. Definitely one of the more deserving films in this
Yeah, it was such a
list.
big hit on Netflix, wasn't it? I mean, A lot of people tuned in to watch Power of the Dog. It was a really big hit for Netflix this year, and I think Netflix were surprised themselves. But I can imagine a lot of people seeing the poster and thinking, "Oh, Benedict Cumberbatch on a horse, a western," and perhaps the people that are being critiqued in the movie are probably watching this movie and soliciting the bad reactions. It's quite interesting to watch that too.
It's a slow burn. There's no doubt about it. It's a
Oh
slow
yeah.
burn, and there are large portions of the film where characters that you have been previously introduced to just aren't there. But you know what? I think if you settle into it, it's a great film. And really kind of
Mhm.
really is introspective on itself, and the genre that it's playing in.
Yeah.
It's great.
Going on to the most probably tradition, the last one we're going to talk about, probably the most traditional of all the movies that we've talked about in regards to Best Picture category, is a movie that actually really deserves to be on this list. West Side Story. It's crazy how Spielberg has been making movies since the 70s, and we're only finally getting a musical from him now. And the guy is just absolutely made for it. He is showing everybody how it's done.
Yeah, and I think this is his sixth decade of being nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah, he still brings that energy. I mean, we talked about Jane Campion about how she knows where to put the camera. I mean, Spielberg really knows where to put the camera. I mean, we underestimate how hard it is to make a movie musical. I think In the Heights did a really good job of it last year. But again, struggled to know how to film certain sections, and the pacing was a little bit off at times. West Side Story, you're already working with, holy grail material, beloved by people of all generations. And the original movie is still regarded as a favorite of many people. I mean, it won I think 8 Oscars the year that it came out, including Best Picture. So it's really nice to see the new movie being tributed in this way, and not to apply recency bias. And I think it actually, and because I'm a big fan of the original film, I think it improves on elements that were weak in that film, and is visually stunning. And I cannot wait to catch up with it again and show everybody I know.
Yeah, I've heard it's the definitive version of this story. I'm just going to chuck it out there again. Bad film, Graduate. Not seen the original West Side Story either, but we'll definitely be catching this one when it comes out on Disney Plus next month. Because it's Steven Spielberg, and he just doesn't put a foot wrong. He's a very, very talented man, as we all know. And doesn't seem to be slowing in as he's getting older. He is
Oh,
just one of the
absolutely.
most exciting filmmakers working, and I think will always be. So, Chris, out of the Best Picture films, uh, who do you think will win, and who would you like to win?
I think it's a really hard category. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, there's just such a real contrast between traditional and contemporary picks. It's really kind of exciting. I would probably want to lean towards one of the more contemporary movies on this list winning, just to rock the status quo a little bit. We like a little bit of anarchy. Um, I I want, I really want Drive My Car to win Best Picture. Yeah, because I'm so surprised it's on there, and I just loved it, and I want more people to see it. Who do I think will win it? There's a part of me that sinks in sorrow, but thinks Belfast is going to win it. Just to the, it's just it plays to so many people. It plays to so many people, and if the Academy has a history of leaning towards movies of that sort of scale.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, every now and then they throw in a curveball, and you think, oh wow, the Academy's changed. They brought
Yeah.
Parasite Best Picture. But yeah, do you know what? I don't I feel the same way about them going towards like a weirder route of sorry. I feel the same way about them going towards the route of Belfast, but I actually think that, in terms of like lesser films on this category, I actually think Don't Look Up has a pretty strong chance,
You know
and I
what?
know that will disappoint
I
you,
don't
Kris,
disagree with you.
and I know it will disappoint many people. But I think there's probably too many people involved in that film voting for it. But there's also a bit of a rally
Oh,
around the message
buddy.
of the film, which isn't a bad message. But those kind of things do play a strong. They stand strong when it comes to voting for the best picture. The film I want to win, Licorice Pizza. I think it's
It's a good
truly
pick.
it's
Yeah.
contemporary whilst at the same time being whilst feeling like old school cinema. That's my one. I would love to see
Yeah.
Licorice Pizza win it, but yeah, no, I think you're right. It's going to Belfast or it's going to Don't Look Up. Yeah, it'll be
Not
interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see.
if Don't Look Up wins Best Picture, I'll be living my life as a hermit. I will give up. I will give up on everything and stay indoors and wear an extremely extravagant robe, and not talk to anybody.
Well, we maybe we'll come back to the Oscars in late March, and any episodes after that will potentially have a different host if Kris is giving up on everything when Don't Look Up wins. Uh, we've spoken a lot, Kris. I think
Too much. Too much.
this is gonna be a pretty big episode. Good luck with the edit. But yeah, I think we've agreed that next week I think we're gonna do something different again. And just
Yeah.
and We're gonna dive deeper into one film in particular. A film that we both haven't seen yet, so we've got a little bit of homework to do. But The Card Counter has come out on some streaming services now, ready to rent, and we're both big fans of First Reformed, which was Paul Schrader's last film, and he's now directed The Card Counter with
Yeah.
Papadoon,
Oscar
Oscar
Isaac himself.
Isaac.
Yeah. we both we,
So
we we
yeah,
both love him.
we both love Oscar Isaac. So yeah. Oh, maybe I've dropped two of my man crushes in this episode: Andrew Garfield and Oscar Isaac. I'll save some. I'll save some more for
Jesse Plemons.
the next episode. But yeah, join us next week when we dive a little bit deeper into that film. We hope you enjoy this. At the moment, you can listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and we're working to get more platforms involved as well. Please rate us and please share with your friends. It is all very much appreciated. And just let us know how you think we're doing. Give some feedback and let us know how we can improve. We're happy to hear what you have to say, and we're looking forward to growing the channel.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys, for listening. For now, I've been Kris.
And I'm Alex, and this is The Film Angle.